Warm welcome and affectionate greetings to everyone. In this video, I propose to share with you a question that's been haunting me ever since the conflict between the Jews and the Palestinians began, with that horrendous attack on the 7th of October 2023 that Hamas mounted on the people of Israel, in which some 1,200 people were massacred, some 250 Jews were taken hostage. The details are known to everyone, therefore, I don't have to repeat. What's the question that's been haunting me? The question is this: why is it that human beings, presumably every one of them belonging to the same family, the same species, Homo sapiens, in spite of the fact that we belong together in this human family, why is it that we are not able to live together in peace, in harmony, in brotherhood? What is it that makes people turn so viciously against each other that they think that eliminating the other is the greatest possible or imaginable achievement? What is it that makes people feel that criminality is more attractive than normal behavior? For example, we know that in literature, portraying a good man convincingly and attractively is very different. Whereas portraying a criminal is very easy. This is not what I'm saying. This is what the Greek thinker Aristotle in his book Poetics pointed out. Says it's very difficult to make a good character seem dramatic and attractive, whereas it's easy to make a wicked character attain a gripping power over the audience. Now, this tells us something about human psychology. So, what is it? This is what I've been trying to ask myself. The second question that's been bothering me is that ever since the beginning of recorded history, much has happened in prehistory before historiography became an art. Ever since the beginning of recorded history, innumerable wars have been fought. If you look at the history of these wars and their outcomes, you'll be shocked to find that none of them really solved any problem. Every war was fought with utmost vigor. It involved the most unthinkable sacrifice, caused unspeakable suffering, loss of life and property. But no problem has been solved. And yet, why is it that human beings continue to repose their faith, their trust in war and violence? This is a question that needs to be addressed. The third question pertains to the psychology of insecurity. After all of us know that one of the motive forces that drives the chariot of warfare is human insecurity. And somehow, because of the psychological conditioning that we have received, we tend to think that by eliminating all others who are different from us or whom we happen to dislike, we can live in security. Actually, there is really no basis for thinking so. Otherwise, the world would have been far more secure by now. On the other hand, human security continues to increase. And the most interesting thing to me, as someone who stands apart and watches or observes what is happening around me, the most interesting thing is the more powerful you are, the more insecure you become. Today, I don't think there's any people more insecure than the Americans because they are the superpower. And if you look at the regions, and look at various regions as far as the Middle East is concerned, the real regional superpower is Israel. I don't think any people in this region is more insecure than the Jews. So there is a correlation between power and insecurity. though we often ignore this reality. Why is it that there is no connected thinking on any of these things? So, this is something that I thought I would bring to your notice and invite you to think about it so that I can benefit from your thinking. Now, in order to facilitate or in order to get started, let me say one or two things. Let me start with my personal experience, on which I've already done a video. About a fortnight ago, because of heavy rains, the boundary wall at the back of my house collapsed. Now, to my surprise, it activated tremendous insecurity. And of course, when I shared this with some of my friends, they said, "Oh, please have it rebuilt, otherwise there could be serious trouble. You're living in Kerala. Don't take these things lightly. You'll invite serious trouble. Get it done at once." So then I had to go off to Calicut. I couldn't get it done immediately. I came back after a week. When I came back after a week, believe you me, I expected to find people already having encroached my land and occupied my house, etc. Such being my weakness, I have no shame in confessing this to you. I feel very embarrassed about it, but I have to be truthful to you. I came back with a nervous apprehension that somebody or the other would have taken over my property and my house. Of course, that was misplaced, and in a few minutes' time, the baseless anxiety was dispelled. I'm sure that all of you are far superior to me in this regard, but I'm just making a confession to you. But this made me think. The question that I ask myself is this: what proved or what served as the basis for my sense of security for the last 9 years that I've been living here was a certain quantity of brick and mortar, that portion of the wall. And what precipitated and intensified my anxiety is a certain quantity of brick and mortar. Now, if you heap a certain quantity of brick and mortar, look at it and say, well, that can make me feel secure, you will never believe it. But if you place it in a certain space, in a certain manner, within a certain understanding, a certain tradition, a certain way of understanding yourself, your neighbor, and others, the world in which you are living, the prevailing culture, the law and order, etc. Within the total context, if you place the same quantity of brick and mortar in a certain space, then that becomes the source of your security. And if that's knocked off that space, it aggravates tremendous insecurity. But this made me think. It made me think and think and think. And I realized that I was a victim of the psychological and cultural conditioning that I had undergone over a period of time. Perhaps I'm not alone in this. There will be many others who feel this way. If you have any experience of your walls collapsing and leaving your campus unprotected, then perhaps you can understand my plight and what I'm saying. So, the truth that dawned on me is that my perception of insecurity may well be based on very flimsy, in fact, laughably, um, shall I say, invalid grounds. The fact that a certain amount of bricks and mortar is placed there may not really secure my security on very firm foundations. Because if you think of it rationally, if somebody really hell bent on burgling me, that person can easily jump over the walls and break into my house. I'm an old man. I'm totally defenseless, and I can be robbed. So if you think about it rationally, rebuilding that wall need not necessarily increase my sense of security. If at all it increases my sense of security, it's purely psychological, it's not factual at all. But psychologically, it makes a big difference. And now I feel so much better that the collapsed wall has been restored, rebuilt. But that is not factual, that is psychological. That sense of security I'm feeling now is psychological. Now, let us analyze it a little further because this issue, this experience has a direct bearing on this huge problem which is now threatening to spin out of control that we are trying to understand. Now, what does the wall represent? The wall is nothing in itself. In itself, it is a certain quantity of brick and mortar. It doesn't have much value. But how does this quantity of brick and mortar, brick, cement, and whatever, acquire such tremendous significance? It does so because of a certain factor, and that's called the sense of ownership. Ownership. So when my wall collapsed, suddenly I began to feel insecure because I felt that what I owned, my possessions, became vulnerable. Then I realized the wall separated me and my neighbor. And as I said in my previous video, because my land is situated on a slope, a major slope, my neighbor at the back of my house lives in such a way that I can never see that house. So, what was it that I was fearing about? What is it that I'm fearing about? Why do I feel insecure when my wall collapses? I had never even seen my neighbor. And there's no way. In fact, the thought that my neighbors could come in and do any harm to me was completely far away from my thought. I never thought of it that way. But the very kind of nameless, faceless feeling that some kind of calamity can happen, irrational insecurity, that really operated in my mind. I make a clean confession of it, even at risk of being despised by you and discounted by you. No harm. Truth is truth, and I don't want to. I don't want to wear a mask and go around as a holy man like some bishops do. The supreme head of the Orthodox Church is Vishuddha Baba, the holy Baba. I'm not a holy man. I'm a weakly, very, very weak human being, very fragile, very insecure, very weak. No problem confessing it. Now, ultimately, therefore, the problem arises because of my sense of ownership. Walls are important because they consolidate my sense of ownership. Once the boundary walls are built, this is my land, and on that land stands my house. It is mine, it's mine, and I am the king of all that I survey. This is the pettiness on which my sense of identity is established. Now, if you really analyze it, it is actually laughable because this sense of ownership cannot really be established on this land. The question I am asking myself is, do you own the land or does the land own you? Because when I die, if my dead body is buried, I've willed that my dead body be cremated or donated to a medical college. Donating it to a medical college is my priority because I've been a teacher and I would like my dead body also to be used for educational purpose. But that's up to my wife and children. But certainly, if it is not donated to the medical college, I would like it to be cremated. But assuming that I am given a burial, then the wonderful words that will be pronounced over my dead body is, dust thou art, to dust thou shalt return. You have come out of the earth and you go back to the earth. That's exactly what is said all the time. But of course, Christians don't pay any attention to these things, which is only natural. So, do I own the land or does the land own me? What happens to the land after I'm dead and gone? What happens to my sense of ownership? Isn't it a fiction? But our life, our attitude, our outlook, especially our attitude to others, everything is based on this fiction of ownership. This is mine, this is mine, this is mine. Now I can understand, in the light of it all, I can understand why Jesus, who came to set people free from their fixations, limitations, anxieties, why Jesus said, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Jesus rejected the idea of ownership completely, which is actually a mark of his freedom. The secret of Jesus' freedom, as well as his spiritual authority, was his total rejection, complete renunciation of the idea of ownership. And it's the one who says he has nowhere to lay his head, who also stands up and says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." I think it's the mind boggling truth. Seems a paradox, the paradoxical truth of it. The real truth is that only he who rises over, transcends, or renounces the sense of ownership will be able to receive others unconditionally and serve as a catalytic agent for his or her liberation. Jesus came, Jesus said, "I have come to set you free." Jesus is a call to liberation. Jesus is the way to freedom. And the source of that reality is to say, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So Jesus was very clear in his mind that unless and until human beings rise above this nervous psychology of ownership, which breeds a whole world of irrational anxieties, apprehensions, negativities, and particularly the tendency to discover enemies and threats and problems where none exists, human beings cannot truly be inwardly free. So we are all really held to ransom not by some external forces, but by our sense of ownership or attachment to whatever we think we own. The fact of the matter is, we don't own them, they own us. And it is for this reason that I believe that Lord Buddha propagated complete non-attachment, anatta, anicca, complete renunciation of all desire, all attachment. You find that teaching also in Guru Nanak, also in the pronouncements of Lord Krishna, and certainly you find that in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. Jesus not only taught, he also lived that reality. Jesus embodied that pure freedom because he transcended the aberrations of the psychology of ownership. This is a theme that you find Tolstoy dealing with in his own ways. This is not the time for me to examine the details thereof. So therefore, now, if you look at the relationship between the Jews and the Palestinians, you tell me, why shouldn't they live in peace as brothers and sisters who share the same geographical area? And probably that's the main reason why they can't live together in peace. Ultimately, the whole problem, this whole mayhem, this bloodshed, this insane malevolence is because of the land, ownership of the land. Whereas if you look at the scriptures of the Jews, the Torah very clearly says that the land belongs to God. Human beings cannot claim land as their freehold. The land, the earth, and all its resources belong to God. They are given to us, given to human beings to meet their needs for a period of time, for the period of time that they're upon planet Earth. So nobody can claim permanent ownership or any meaningful extent of ownership of anything. Now, this simple idea could have been a liberating influence, could have had a liberating influence on the situation. But unfortunately, what the scriptures say is one thing, and people do in the name of that bit of religion is something very different. Because unfortunately, in the Torah, there is also the passage that the Gentiles must be kept at a distance. And in fact, they should not be allowed to influence the spiritual character of the promised land. And if you tolerate the Gentiles, then your loyalty to Yahweh will be diluted. And if you commingle with them and have children through intermarriage, etc., then Yahweh will be very upset with you, then you're done for. Now, this kind of divisive thinking is injected as a poison into the veins of people. This is where I feel the religions do a terrible disservice to humanity. Now, I remember when I was a young boy living in and growing up in Mavelikara, The Hindu homes living all around us, and in fact, surrounding us were mostly Hindu families. They were far more religiously tolerant than we were. We used to have a Friday family prayer in our house. Of course, a joint house. I lived with my grandparents, a certain number of aunts, etc. There's a lot, about 11 people, 11, 12, 11 or 12 of us lived together, joint family. Now, there used to be a Friday prayer in the house. And not infrequently, the Hindus living in the area would come and attend the prayer worship, the prayer service, fellowship. Not that any one of them got converted and became Christian. No, there was no need. There was no such thought. People shared each other's life, etc. But the Christian attitude, the official church attitude to the non-Christians was very different. But fortunately, the attitude that prevailed in Christian homes was different. Even though I grew up in a joint family which took Christianity very seriously, my grandfather was very pious in a very principled manner, very a noble man whom I greatly respect. He didn't have the slightest problem with my attending temple festivals because I didn't go to temple festivals to worship. I went there because there used to be variety entertainment programs, including a particular Kerala art form called Katha Prasangam, where certain stories will be presented through music and a certain degree of acting, and the language used to be very, very literary and very enjoyable, sweet, and the way of presentation used to be so enjoyable. And that was the art form that I really enjoyed because it had oratory, it had music, it had the storyline, and the language used was exemplary, and the whole thing was so enjoyable. And I used to go there. And none in my family said had the slightest problem with this young boy attending all temple festivals in that region. But today it's very different. It's very different. And the influence, it's because of the influence of religion. I don't believe that if Christian children refuse to participate or are kept away from Hindu festivals where they go to see this variety entertainment programs, their spiritual development will be better off. Or that they'll go to hell if they go and see some variety in the entertainment programs offered in connection with the temple festival. I really don't believe it. But attitudes have hardened. We have become far more intolerant. And basically, if you look at the reason why this region is in turmoil, it's because of the intolerance of each other, which is bred by religion. Intolerance rooted in religion is a curse of this region. And I don't know what we should think of this kind of religiosity. The religiosity that makes you believe that killing your brother, your sister, who happen to be different from you in the kind of faith he or she professes or practices, has any value whatsoever. I believe that spilling human blood is the ultimate solution. I believe that he who raises his hand against his brother, no matter his neighbor, no matter what religion or political ideology he professes, is polluted. And that's the one thing that really um, cannot be forgiven. That's why in the Old Testament, in the Ten Commandments, there is the commandment, thou shalt not kill. The interesting thing is that this Ten Commandments, all these Ten Commandments are endorsed by the Jews. I'm sure are also endorsed by the Muslims. But both groups prove their great fervor by killing each other. Now, this irrationality is bred by the sense of ownership, and ownership activates a psychology of insecurity, and that psychology of insecurity activates the irrationality that in order to be secure, one has to eliminate everyone else who looks, walks, or lives differently to what one is doing. The incapacity to live peaceably with differences is unfortunately bred by religion. If people are left to themselves, they'll fare much better. So I repeat what I said in a video shared with all of you a year ago. Unless and until the religious question is addressed upfront in truth, the problem that continues to uh, activate upheavals in this region, causes bloodshed and unspeakable human suffering, cannot be addressed, cannot be solved. And when I think of the unspeakable suffering of the people of Gaza, I cannot but feel that no matter what excuse Israel has in causing and perpetuating the suffering, Israel will have to pay a price for it. Unfortunately, there's a law of history, it's a law of nature. As Jesus said, with what measure you measure, it shall be measured to you. Whatever you do to others will be done to you. There's no question about it. So, from my perspective, this ill-conceived idea on the part of Israel that by attacking Iran, it will secure its security on a firm footing for the next half a century could well be the way history is telling Israel, look, the payback time has come. The people of Gaza have been in this plight for some time. Now it's your turn. So Gaza is coming home to roost. I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not the case. I sincerely hope that's not the case. But I don't know. And I'm worried and I'm deeply, desperately worried. Thank you.